Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Startup of the Year podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, the co-founder and co-CEO of Established, also the co-founder of Established Ventures and the team behind the Startup of the Year community and this very podcast. And we appreciate you being here today. So thank you. In this episode, I'm going to talk to my longtime friend and colleague, John Guidos. You may have heard of him previously on the pod here, as well as being an integral part of the Somewhat Frank podcast. So you may have heard of him. His nickname's Johnny Goodtimes. He's a lot of fun, but he's a really smart guy too. And he's our COO and here at Established, as well as a member of the investment arm at Established Ventures. But in this episode, we're not talking about any of that. We're actually talking about something he did previously when he co-founded in 2015 a startup that grew all the way to successful acquisition in 2017. That company is called TurboAppeal. It was based out of Chicago. And he participated in 2015 in the Startup of the Year Awards out in Las Vegas, did tremendously well. And that company, TurboAppeal, is an evidence-based, data-driven technology that worked to present a more accurate tax property appeal process on behalf of real estate property owners. So pretty cool technology in the property tech space. And I was an advisor to that company actually as well after they came out to Las Vegas, and got a front row seat on their startup journey, and couldn't be happier for John and all of his successes with that company, and look forward to talking to him about it here in a moment. Before we get started though with the interview, I want to share a segment from Rich Maloy from the Established Ventures and Established team with the VC Minute. Take it away, Rich.
Hi, this is Rich Maloy with Established Ventures, bringing you the VC Minute. Quick advice to help startup founders fundraise better. Let's talk about runway. This is the last piece of the VC treadmill, for now. When you set out to raise a round of capital, you'll get asked about your runway. This is important because fundraising is a waste of your time. Okay, I'm being dramatic, but fundraising isn't the point of the business. It's the process to get the fuel to build and scale the business. Fundraising is part of building a highly scalable, fast-growing company. And while it brings money in the door, it doesn't directly serve your purpose, which is to create something of value. You and I both know that your time is better spent building product, acquiring customers, and building a team. So as an investor, I know that fundraising could take 6 months or more in a worst-case scenario, or maybe 1 month in a best-case scenario. But let's call it 3 months to raise a round. And if you only have 12 months of runway, you need to start your raise 9 months from now. So coming back to the analogy, you need to hit goals that will propel you to the next level on the treadmill. Can you realistically achieve significant progress in 9 months? Probably not. Or let me put it another way. If you had to hit a specific growth objective, would you want to have 9 months to hit that mark or 12 months? What about blowing it out of the water in 15 months? Putting my investor hat back on, I need to be sure you have enough runway to hit your growth goals to get to the next level. And I would rather you take 15 months, knock the cover off the ball, and maybe even get preempted for your next round. That's why runway is important. That's all for the VC Minute. Back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Rich. I'm sure our listeners will find that information helpful. Thanks so much. Now switching gears, I want to invite all the startup founders out there listening to join our growing startup community and partake in our 2021 Startup of the Year Awards. The application's open right now. And if you're listening and you're a startup founder and you've raised less than $5 million in funding, have a functional prototype beyond just the idea, and are out there and want to get out further, take advantage of the opportunity to meet investors, get more exposure, build lasting relationships, you should apply immediately. Go to soty.link/apply, soty.link/apply. The top 100 companies that apply each year are brought out to our summit, and that summit will take place at the end of the year. And that's an additional opportunity for building connections, relationships, showcasing, and potentially taking home the title of Startup of the Year. So it should be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting back into seeing people in real life, which is kind of cool. So that'll be coming up, but you got to apply. You got to start with the application. So go to soty.link/apply and become a part of our community today. All right. Next, we always like to share tools that our startup founders in our community can take advantage of. One of which today is called Tax Taker. If you're not familiar, there's tax credits out there for research and development that any startup that's developed developing products and services or technology can take advantage of, even if you're not profitable. So you can go out there and actually take advantage of this right away. Our friends over at TaxTaker are making it easy for founders to get the savings that are due. All you have to do is 100% free to sign up. Go over to taxtaker.com/SOTY. Again, it's taxtaker.com/SOTY. Be sure to check them out because they'll actually they'll actually see if you qualify, and then obviously you can start saving right away. So again, it's taxtaker.com/SOTY. All right, now let's get to it. Johnny Guidos talking about his company and his success with TurboAppeal. Welcome, John Guidos. So great to have you here today.
Thanks, Frank. Great to be here.
We're here to talk about all the adventures that went along with that 2-year stint there that just was phenomenal for the business as well as for your life. So for those that are unfamiliar though, John, can you please explain what TurboAppeal really was and what it was all about?
Absolutely. And it's nice to talk about this again. It's been a few years, bringing back some old memories, but sure, for sure. So we started TurboAppeal as an opportunity to bring big data, machine learning into the world of property tax, the property tax space. Historically, homeowners would go to attorneys or do it themselves, and they would appeal their property taxes. I could go into some examples of that, but it's kind of complicated. So what we did was we tried to take the complexities out of it. And homeowners could go online to our website, type in a few pieces of information, agree to our terms, and we would file property taxes on their behalf. And the product kind of took many different iterations. That's where we started at. Ultimately, we were building, a very automated process that basically homeowners could, swipe their credit card and print out a packet and file the appeal on their own behalf for a very minimal fee compared to others in the same space that were, competitors of ours. And then we also started building out a commercial product as well, which was gaining some traction and basically led to our exit. So I know I bounced around a lot there. As I mentioned, this is looking backwards now. So can't really, if you took a snapshot in time at the beginning, what we did versus the end, completely different.
That makes sense. And John, can you explain a little bit more about where the idea came from? I know, let's talk about what the past, what people would do in the past to kind of go get their property taxes and how you guys kind of came about in making this company happen.
But my co-founder and I, Bavel Shah, we sat down, we were colleagues and friends for some time beforehand. Before we started the company, we literally sat down for a beer. I was an attorney at the time, practicing attorney, litigating attorney. And he posed the question and said, let's work on something together. Do you have any ideas, right? Is there any way to automate being an attorney? And I said, well, I don't know if we can automate being an attorney, but there's certain aspects and tools we could probably build to help attorneys. And one of the things I'd been sitting on for years and kind of doing research in the background and was, the property taxes. And I'd filed a few for friends and family and some high net worth people in my network. And, I was always scratching my head and I was like, this is so crazy. This is monotonous. It was a very difficult process. Right. And so I'd always thought, man, a big data company needs to come in here and clean this up and really automate and build efficiencies in this space.
How did you start it? Like, what was the first kind of iteration, I guess you could say?
My words of advice have always been, don't quit your day job, start a side hustle. And then if it picks up steam or whatever, then you can take it on as a full-time job. And that's basically what happened. I would say the turning point was we were in contact with some of the larger real estate technology or real estate players in Chicago. App Properties ended up being a big investor and a huge channel partner for us. What was great about it was we knew we were onto something. Not only did these people say, yeah, this is a great idea and we'd love to work with you all, but we're also interested in being investors. Can we come on as investors? At that point, once we started taking on investor money, I think Bavel and I looked at each other and said, okay, now this has become a full-time job and we need to build this thing and scale it up as best as we can.
That makes sense. And then how did you find that first customer? Do you remember the first customer? Or, sometimes you do remember it, sometimes it's a blur. So I'm curious if you remember your first customers and what that looked like.
We were working with some friendlies so that we could work out some of the kinks, but basically had to take my domain knowledge of the property tax space and then create, the logic of what we were doing. So we signed up some friendlies, a lot of our people, the great thing about the product was if you ask who the customer is, it's basically everybody that owns a home. So obviously we had friends and family that owned homes. And so they were gracious enough to allow us to try out the product. And we saw great success with it. We were having really good success rate with what we were trying to do, which validated what we were doing. And then we put out the website, and it was really cool because every day you'd wake up 100 new customers, 200 new customers the following day. And we would joke around that our mood was kind of delegated by how many signups we would have every day. But like I said, it was a good problem to have because, you could have a great idea, but if you don't have any customers, then it's just a great idea. Whereas we kind of launched, and then all of a sudden it was like a drinking from a fire hose, as people say, right? Where we had more customers than we knew what to do with, and we had to quickly hire and build the company out. So those are good problems to have for a startup founder.
Absolutely. That sounds like the right approach. And then as you continue to grow, you started B2C, right? And shifted a little bit towards more B2B.
Yeah, we started out at B2C, and when you're managing thousands of customers, the cost to operate is very expensive. You have to have a whole customer service team on board, right? So basically, yeah, we did start B2C, but then we quickly realized that our channel partners were some of our best allies for minimizing our customer acquisition costs. So we did end up ultimately becoming B2B2C, let's call it. So we would sell our services to some of these larger real estate investment groups, REITs, and other providers that would then, roll it out to their individual customers and clients.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then maybe tell us a little bit more about how you grew the company with that in that direction. And then was your goal always to exit, or what were you looking at as you were kind of building this out?
Right. We were very transparent with our investors from the beginning, I like to think, and that we were building this and trying to seek an acquisition sooner rather than later. So we built very fast, and we were able to do so. It was funny though, because you're two founders walking around basically with an envelope full of documents and two laptops, and then you, like I said, you start bringing on all of these clients and you need additional people, and then you turn around a month or two later and you have an office and 5 to 10 employees, something like that. And as you scale it, it sounds exciting. But, as you grow and you create those various layers, you ultimately become, just an HR coordinator, and you're hiring people and managing and dealing with egos and all that sort of thing. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right. So, you guys went through the Startup of the Year community in 2015. Was that prior to you raising, right? So you were kind of just getting going back then. Let's talk about that experience and then what that led to as far as you ended up, going out and raising and all that. So let's talk through that time.
Yeah, sure. So it was all happening in parallel, but yeah, we did in 2015, we participated, we were runners up. And we were very excited about that coming out to Las Vegas and participating in all the events and meeting all of the other co-founders. It was just really a lot of fun, right? And very exciting for us and our new company, and just an idea it was more than an idea at the time, but created some larger conversations. We got a lot of investors, let's call it nationwide investors. We had a lot of Chicago investors that were on board and excited, but created some bigger conversations and had some conversations with some nationwide investors and that sort of thing. We ended up raising a seed round, and then we ultimately raised a Series A. And what I was excited about was, if you looked at our cap table, we had some really big hitters on there in the real estate world and the real estate tech space. A lot of it too was strategic investors. So we tried to be as smart about it as we could, and brought on people that could help us distribute our product and get us in the hands of a number of different customers quickly. Let's
talk about that a little bit more, John, the strategic investors, because I think some people believe that strategic investors might be dead weight. Like, there's been that kind of tossed around this, startup ecosystem, like, certain strategic investors are going to just look and, sit on your idea and maybe weight you down, and maybe then just, maybe acquire you or to pounce on you or whatever. Whereas others are more value added, right? They're going to continue to push forward and try to make sure the business is moving, and because they see a bigger picture there. So let's talk about the value of the strategic investors that you worked with and how that all kind of turned out.
Strategic investors were amazing. They opened up opportunities, introduced us to people, not only other investors, but other bigger commercial clients, let's call it. I can't say enough about it. I see total value in it. In my opinion, if you could only work with strategic investors, that would be the route to go. Although, unfortunately, that doesn't happen to be the case all of the time, right? Nothing. It was one thing if we're out there beating our own chests and telling people use our product, it's the greatest thing in the world. But if you're utilizing let's say an App Properties, and for those unfamiliar, in Chicago, App Properties is the number one real estate company, we're brokerage, right? And so if they were sending out a direct mailer to all of their customers saying, hey, work with our trusted partner, TurboAppeal, and you could potentially save X amount of money on your property taxes. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, the dashboard we were using, and you'd see that huge spike going through the roof on the next morning of people signing up.
Really interesting. Did you do other things as well? Did you do, back then, was there a big push on Instagram or like Facebook or anything like that? Or
we tried all of those things. I mean, we had billboards around Chicago, which were kind of fun. We advertised on the radio. Chicago was our first market, and then we had a plan to scale nationwide, and we went to a few different markets, Florida, Texas, et cetera. But Chicago was kind of our, where we started out. So it was a lot of fun at the time. I mean, there was a nice buzz. somebody like a friend of the family or something would say, oh, I heard, your ad on the radio, or we saw your billboard as we were sitting in traffic or whatever. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the entrepreneurial stuff. So like, what were some of the things you look for in a founder, right? So just kind of think about this. What's the most important qualities of a startup founder? Like what are some of the things that maybe you thought, wow, this is really helpful in my journey when you were doing it?
Yeah, I think the ability, they call it grit. I've heard this a lot, but it really is true. Some days are better than others. And you need to be able to get through those rough times. And I mean, I can tell you right now, people don't talk about it a lot, but there were times where, my co-founder and I sat down and we were talking about scaling back our team and creating a skeleton crew to kind of get through a rough patch. And then all of a sudden, the next day we signed up a huge channel partner and we were oversubscribed for the round we were trying to raise, right? So it's like literally from one day to the next, but you gotta have the wherewithal to stomach through some of those rough times. So that would be my number one. And then two is also, I think for me, and I'm kind of like, sometimes you have to balance others, right? Is clear and consistent messaging. And I think a lot of that has to do with if you're building a team, you need to, if you come in every day and you're trying to you act like you're trying to figure things out, or you pivot at the drop of a hat if a new product or something doesn't go as well as planned, you start to lose a lot of trust from, not only your team, but heaven forbid you have a board and the board starts seeing you lose focus or lose trust in your team and your customers as well. Trying to be a strong, clear, consistent leader is another thing that's, I think, is very important. It takes a certain type of person, as I mentioned, to bring onto your team that also has the patience and flexibility to work through some of those problems or some of those issues with you. I guess coming into things, I never thought that hiring would be that hard. And it really is. And so you can work with whatever it be, recruiters, or put out ads on, Career Builder or whatever. But really the most success we had was people within our own networks that really came on and added value to the company. And you also had a kind of an understanding of their personality beforehand. And again, depending upon how quickly you're trying to scale and build the company, you may not have that luxury, but people that knew of somebody that was looking for a role and had a nice background and successful background oftentimes translated to success in the company.
Did you end up, finding people quickly though, or was it a struggle?
We found people pretty quickly, and some of those worked out. They say, hire fast, fire fast, which I don't love that saying, but it is true. I think that you have a pretty good understanding if somebody's going to fit in with your company rather quickly, probably in the first month or so. And look, sometimes it's a fit and sometimes it isn't. We don't want to waste our time, and we don't want to waste the other person's time. And we don't want somebody dragging themselves in and being miserable every day. So if it's not meant for them, then, we wish them the best. We try to help them, land on their feet with somebody else or a partner or something like that. But we were able to hire rather quickly. And like I said, some worked out and some didn't. And I will say that I am proud of the team that we built, and some of those actually came with us after the acquisition to the acquiring company. And I still have a great longstanding relationship with a lot of those people, and I consider them close friends.
All right, great. So maybe could you share a little bit more about your leadership strategies as you work through this early stage startup? What were kind of some of the things that worked for you?
Kind of alluded to them earlier. Clear, consistent messaging with your team. I think that's important, and then also not Sometimes people get into a thing where that you're trying to make so much happen so quickly that you start throwing stuff against the wall and hoping something will stick, and it really loses focus. It can oftentimes, be a distraction for the team. And then look, as a startup, you're trying to disrupt something that, a lot of times you're trying to do something that nobody's ever done before, or you're doing it in a different way. So there is a sense of figuring things out. And I think that as a leadership team, if you go in the conference room and you close the door and you whiteboard it out and you figure it out, that's great. But you also need to have some strategy with how you roll that out, or how you get buy-in from your team, and you communicate it clearly so that people have direction and understand, when I come into the office, these are my expectations and this is what needs to get done, so that I can add value to the overall future of this company.
Now, back then, did you guys use any devices, like tools? Like, did you use Slack? Well, it didn't probably exist yet, did it?
No.
What did you guys use to kind of make sure that there was constant communication between your team, especially as you grew?
Mostly email and phone. It sounds crazy because it was only a couple of years ago now, but yeah, Slack wasn't around. And what I do feel good about too is, we were a startup, but like internally, we used startup to our benefit when we were trying to create buzz around the company. But internally, our founders came from a long line of working in big industry, right? And so we did have a very good HR process. We had a great onboarding. I like to think really good onboarding and offboarding processes in our internal system. And we were providing, Fortune 500 benefits to our team and those sorts of things. So I'm proud to say we were a really well-run machine or company rather quickly.
That's great. All right. So let's talk about the acquisition now. So you guys were, had raised some funds, you were growing. What happened? Tell our listeners a story about how that acquisition process kicked off and maybe like how it all went down.
Sure. So we started working with a customer and we were building out, it was a commercial property tax group, and we were building out a commercial product for them because we had a lot of really great developers and a technology team led by our CTO, Scott Beeson, who's a really, a good person, not only a good person, but also he has the development skills and also the business side of it as well. So he could understand and connect some of those dots where he would understand the business need in addition to building out the product, which was great. But so we were building out a commercial product for one of our biggest customers. And ultimately, I think they took it in internally and said, okay, well, maybe we can acquire TurboAppeal and roll them in and build out a residential property tax product. And also, it was also a talent acquisition as well with some of our leaders and our development team as well.
Gotcha. And how did that process go? I know some acquisitions can take a while. I've been through it. It took us a long time to go through due diligence and all that. How did that all go down?
It was
kind of stories.
It was a roller coaster of emotions, Frank.
I know. I figured it would be.
But yeah, the diligence process is, you learn a lot, but it was I think it was about a 6-month process from beginning of interest to closing of the deal. One day you would think, okay, this deal is not going to work out. It's not the right fit. It's not happening. And then the next day it's all rainbows and sunshine again. This is going to be this is the right decision. This is going to be huge. We're going to team up with this group and blow things out of the water. Again, that idea of grit and being able to weather some of those rough times was really important. We set ourselves up from day one, whether it be our data repositories and the way we were tracking our files and our contracts, like really trying to do so that literally when the acquisition, and this is what we did, is when they came to us and said, hey, we want to take a look at your data room, we were literally able to flip a switch and they had access to all of our files and everything was already organized. It was all there. There was a few things that we had to track down or clean up, but for the most part, on our end, it was a pretty seamless process. From day one, you should keep those things in mind instead of just, we'll get around to it at some point, because you never know when a potential acquirer could be coming around. And then, you could create a lot of headache and additional work if you're not doing things correctly from the get-go.
Right. And so you guys raised $7-something million. and this kind of popped up as an acquisition opportunity. What were your thoughts when that happened? Were you thinking, oh gosh, we're going to take it immediately, or we're like, oh, we got to go out and raise more? Or was it so good that you had to just jump on it, or how did that all go down? And what was your thought process back then?
In the space we were in, there was a huge data issue where there's not a lot of good real estate data for the purposes of property taxes out there. And they had another portfolio company that was a data vendor that, was working to have all of that information. So that would solve one of our largest problems. So we looked at it as a great partnership opportunity for us, and we explored it. And look, I mean, we had to do our diligence as well to make sure it was the right group, and we tried to do so. But basically, it was, the idea was to be the convergence of various things to help achieve our ultimate goal.
Okay. And you stayed with the company a little while after, right?
Yep.
You kind of locked in. How long was that, and how did that all go?
I stayed on for a year, which was what, the agreement was for. It was interesting, right? The one thing, and I've thought about this a lot, is I try to think of an analogy for what the exit was like. And basically what I've boiled it down to is it's like you're selling a car, right? You put all of this love and attention, you're building this car and spend years doing so every waking minute, and you love this car. And then you ultimately sell it to somebody else, and they can do whatever they want with it, right? They can take it to a car show and show it off, and it's their car, or they could park it in a garage and just put it under a cover, and it's their baby to do what they want with it, right? So, some of that stuff's interesting to think about, but ultimately there has to be a reason why you sell it. So you have to be comfortable with doing so. And, you put your ego aside, and that's just the way things are. Well, it was, I stayed on and for a year and tried to help out the new company as best as I possibly could.
All right. So now let's talk about what kind of things kind of kept you going through that process, through that roller coaster process of the acquisition and just, the ups and downs of startup life. Are there any habits or rituals that you do to kind of like keep yourself going, motivated, positive, and moving things forward?
The idea of running a startup and is very exciting. Waking up every morning, you never know what kind of adventure you're going to go on, who you're going to talk to, who you're going to meet, what's going to happen, what problems you're going to have to solve. And I really love that. I still do. I also love the idea of camaraderie of a team and building out a team and all of the things that come with that. I know culture is a big word that's used, but building out a culture, doing fun things, having inside jokes, and I don't know. I just really enjoy that. That helped me get through it. And then also the idea of helping out your customer and trying to change the world for the better. And we set out, this can't be overlooked, and I should have mentioned it earlier, but, ultimately you're helping people save money. And some people, have it better than others. And if you can help people save money, you never know. You could help them, have Christmas gifts for their kids or feed themselves. Now, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, right? But ultimately, we set out to help people, and I hope to think we did so.
All right. So, last question: what advice would you give to any new young entrepreneurs out there?
My advice for startup founders is you don't have to have all the solutions up front. You're going to iterate. It's so cliche, but it's so true, right? Is if you have an idea, it's just an idea, right? I mean, anybody can have an idea. You need to execute, you need to make it happen, and there needs to be a sense of fearlessness in you to go every day and try to do something different. And you really you have to be fearless, and you also have to be accepting of the fact that you don't have all the solutions, but you also trust in yourself that you have the capacity to figure things out, and you will figure it out.
I appreciate that. I agree 100%. So thanks, John. Do you have any final thoughts, plugs, ideas, anything else you want to share with the audience?
Right. So after all, that experience with TurboAppeal, I went on to work with another startup with my co-founder, and then really wanted to work with you, Frank, and the team at Startup of the Year. And we'd like to think we're doing some good things and providing resources for startup founders out there. So, everybody that's listening, go ahead and apply for Startup of the Year or join our community to check out some cool resources, meet some people, have a little bit of fun, right? Yeah, so that's really my biggest plug. If anybody wants to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn, shoot me a note, and, happy to talk to people and meet people and connect.
Thanks, John. I'm sure our listeners can learn a lot from what you just shared as you took that simple idea and built it all the way to a successful exit. I'm so proud of what you've been able to accomplish and just happy to be a friend of yours. You've done some amazing work. So Thanks for being here and being a part of this team and joining us at Established as well. It's been a lot of fun working with you every single day. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode and you were able to take something interesting from the conversation. If you enjoyed it, please do share it with someone that you think will find this helpful. Sharing is caring, and we want to spread the word. And if you have a startup idea and you want to get it going, today is the best day to start up. Not tomorrow, not the next day. Get it going, iterate. And in doing so, I encourage you to join our community for access to support, expert advice, and resources that you may need to elevate your startups to the next level. And you can just do it by simply going to soty.link/apply, and you'll get an email back, and you'll learn a lot about the different resources that we provide immediately, including a Slack community and a number of other things coming up. So you should do it today. Don't wait. Until next time, I'm Frank Gruber signing off. Thanks again for listening. Wishing you the best of luck and future success with your venture.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon.